I'd be lying if I said that didn't drive me absolutely bonkers and up the wall and make me like very jealous and very annoyed and sometimes even angry towards it. Hi
guys, welcome back to our channel. Today we are talking all about the twin flame dark side. This is a part 2 video, so if you didn't already, go back and watch part 1 and let's get into the video. Alright guys, thank you so much for being here today. I'm Serena.
And I'm James.
And we are Life After Union, two twin flames in union. We make these weekly videos to help you in your separation, in your reunion, in your spiritual awakening. If you're looking for more help and support on that journey, check the links down below. You can join our group Twin Flame Coaching Container. Right now we are in the middle of our group coaching, so if you'd like to join the waitlist for the next iteration, please sign up below. If you'd like to work with James or I one-on-one, you can also check the links down below. But when we get into the video today, so this video came as a part 2 from comment that we received asking some questions, specifically mostly about you. I'll throw my 2 cents in here and there and everywhere. But yeah, so we're basically going to just continue working through the questions that we had for you. And these are all about kind of, the dark side of twin flames, negative emotions, karmics, all of that kind of stuff. The first question is, did you feel emotionally played or emotionally abused by me?
Every single day. So obviously talking about when we first met more than anything else, correct?
Or in the separation phase, as me being the runner, you being the chaser.
I mean, not really. I think the only time I maybe felt a little bit preyed on, I guess I would say as a word, would be when you're going to be coming, as we always speak about, coming back to me at Coffee Bay. On the very first trip you went to come back to me after you had split up and before you were going to go home. There was a point where I felt a bit of betrayal. And I suppose that could be related to being emotionally played on. It's obviously
when I didn't come back.
When you didn't come back, yeah, sorry. This is a difficult one.
Well, it's interesting that you said betrayed, because I call that in our own twin flame dynamic the betrayal point. So like a lot of times in the twin flame dynamic, there's a point which leads into separation, where one twin will do something to the other twin which will trigger each other. And for me, that was my triggering point of realizing that I was unreliable, and that I needed to really be sure within myself and not just making decisions willy-nilly, because it's such a psychic connection. I could feel how deeply I hurt you, even though you didn't say it at the time, because we did have a week of like not talking. But I knew how much that was painful to you, and I could really feel it within me. And then I really realized, like, ooh, I am not in the right place to be able, like, I would be playing with your emotions if I came back to you, because I knew how deeply you cared for me and how deeply you wanted to support me. But I was not in a place where I could be reliable at that time. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think for me too, I actually always had a fear throughout our separation that I was playing you, in a way, because I think I was so nervous that things weren't going to work out and that you were going to feel that way, so because you were so committed for the entire relationship, like from the get-go, that I really felt very nervous about the fact that
you're going to mess me about.
Yeah, that like maybe I didn't perceive you the way that you actually were, and when I came back to meet you, you weren't going to be the same person, and then you were going to feel like, oh my God, she completely,
did a 180.
Yeah, like she just really messed with me, or, I was really scared that the universe was going to stop me from coming back to see you, You know, so I really thought like, oh, maybe something would happen between me and my karmic partner that would keep me from coming back to see you, and then you will feel like I played you. So it was a big fear for me throughout our entire separation, is that you were going to feel that way.
I think from my side, because of the way we went about things, obviously there was that bit of a betrayal point where obviously we both had felt it. But I think because of the way that even during that point we're giving each other time and space to really process through things and also come back into ourselves. And obviously I knew where I had been because I had been through my karmic relationship already and had been through a lot of that and had a lot of time to process it. And, you know, I had really explored a lot within myself and within life and managed to gain a bigger perspective that you hadn't maybe come to as of yet. Um, that really helped me not to really feel betrayed that much during those processes because kind of understood where you're at and what you're going through, and obviously because we had spoken about what you're doing and you had said like, look, this, I'm doing this now for me. I was, even though it might not have been in the front of my head saying, oh well, we just been through that, like maybe it's her turn to do it, but without even really thinking about that, because of the way that my brain works these things, is I instantly felt that you weren't really betraying me in that kind of a way.
I wasn't intentionally doing it.
Yeah, you're on your journey doing your thing, and yes, that can be seen as a betrayal to some degree, but at the same point, I don't recall ever remembering that, oh no, she betrayed me, she's trying to screw me over and playing with my emotions. Because when we went through those moments, because we had that time to really think on it, it allowed me to really like recollect myself a bit, and then by the time we were in contact again and then we spoke about everything, it allowed me the space to be like, okay, well, it wasn't actually betrayal, it was simply, even though it might feel like betrayal, it was you doing what you need to do for yourself, which I could understand from that point because I had just gone through all of that in the last, I think it was about 2 years before the point that me and you had met. I think it's about somewhere between 2 and 3 years.
Yeah.
So I had a lot more knowledge, I guess you could say, in that department without even really thinking that, oh well, I know what this is about, because obviously at that point my mindset wasn't on where we are with things now and how we think about things now. So without even really being like conscious of that, I had a feeling already inside of me saying, okay, it's all right, this is fine, let's just talk through it, and let's talk together about these things and see, okay, are you actually in the same place? If you're not in the same place, I think the big thought that kind of always sat with me is like, you know, if this doesn't work, at least I know, and I know that we both put the effort in and tried to do it. Obviously, yes, it still would have been heartbreaking, it would have been difficult, and who knows where I would have been today. But it kind of gave me that sense of like, it's actually going to be all right, because no matter what the outcome might be, it's not going to be anything like terrible, horrendous, or something I can never come back from. It was like, it's actually okay. Like, we can actually get through this, and we'll make a plan with it, and we'll make it work, and things will fall into place the way they're meant to, because you can't make things happen that aren't meant to happen.
Yeah. Did you feel played or betrayed or emotionally manipulated when we had our experience together? We had a couple days together, and then I went back to my traveling to my partner at that time. Did you feel that in that situation or no?
I don't think I could use the word betrayed, because at that point, obviously, I knew what your relationship status was. I knew where you were and what the thing was happening. Obviously, there was a lot of emotion that was going through me that I wasn't necessarily expecting to experience in our endeavors that we went through and our experiences we had together. I wasn't expecting it to be to such a deep degree. But I don't think I ever thought that you had betrayed me in those moments, because if I had to think of it in my way, which is a very logical way, at that point you weren't actually mine. Not that you've ever been mine, or, you know, but you weren't my partner, you were somebody else's partner, and you're in a place where these things were able to happen. So as much as I'd like to say that, yes, I felt betrayed, it wasn't actually any sort of betrayal, because there was a good understanding of where we both were in that circumstance.
Okay. So then this is not coming out of left field, but in another point within our separation, within days of each other, we both slept with other people.
Yeah.
So this is also something interesting. We didn't talk about that. So this happened very early on in our separation.
Just after you didn't come back when you said you're going to.
Yes, right. Like for me, right before I went back to the States, and then for you, probably that time, if not maybe a day or two later.
Yeah.
And neither one of us told the other person. We went 6 months into our separation, and then back into reunion. So I came back here to South Africa. We got maybe 2 months into our relationship, and then it started bubbling under the surface for probably both of us.
Yeah.
I know you felt a lot of guilt. I felt guilt that I didn't tell you. I didn't feel guilt that I did it, but I felt guilt that I didn't tell you about it.
I felt guilt for both.
For both.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so when I did tell you about it, did you feel betrayed or manipulated in that way? Like, what was your feelings?
I think in those moments, I wanted to feel betrayed, and I wanted to feel like you manipulated me, but I couldn't.
Because you did the same thing.
Well, because I had done the same thing. So for me, that would have just been me being overly judgmental towards somebody who didn't actually do anything wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's many ways you could look at it, but ultimately, you didn't do anything wrong because we weren't actually in union at that point. Yeah, we were talking about it and we were trying to get to a point of union, but we weren't there yet. So you didn't actually betray me. Yes, we probably could have gone about for both our sides differently in that situation. Will I change it now? No, because if we change anything now, it wouldn't be where we are at the moment, and you wouldn't have gone through the process you went through and had the thought process, and same for me to get to that point afterwards in order to know, have a better understanding of ourselves and where we actually want to go and the people we want to end up with. So yeah, I definitely wanted to feel betrayed, but I couldn't because I had done the same thing.
Yeah.
Which obviously made things very confusing at times as well, because like I want to be annoyed at you, but I can't because you haven't done anything wrong. You've done exactly what you're allowed to do, without saying you're allowed to do it, because obviously it was, yeah.
And I think that's a really good point to bring up to anybody that might be watching this, going through these types of scenarios or going through feeling hurt or betrayed, is to keep in mind, like, again, you say it in a really good way where all those feelings and emotions still come up. We want to feel betrayed. We want to feel hurt. We want to feel like we've been emotionally played. We want to feel like we've been neglected or abused. And that's all emotions from things that have happened to us in our past, right? Where if you really went and you dissected the scenario, you could see how, logically speaking, it doesn't fit that scenario. Like, yes, it's completely valid to feel all of those emotions and to be hurt and betrayed, but to blame the person for it doesn't actually get you anywhere at the end of the day. And this is really big on the twin flame journey, and this is really big with taking your power back, because this is where we get into blame, shame, guilt with our partners, and we say, well, it's your fault, you did it to me, you're the problem, you must change, you must this, you must that. Rather than looking at it and seeing, okay, where do I also show up that way? Where did I accept that type of behavior? Where do I need to change beliefs within myself? And again, this is a good time to look back within. So I think that's really important to consider if you are going through these kind of negative emotions or are going through these feelings, is to really look also inside rather than just saying, oh, it's their fault, they're the problem, and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's not to excuse truly abusive behavior. This is the thing, right? And this is, I believe, why I had my karmic relationship. This is actually a good segue because the next question is about karmics. So this is why I think I had my karmic relationship, because that relationship to me was truly emotionally abusive and it was emotionally neglectful. But up until that point, I was in such a victim mentality and I was very immature in a way that I perceived anybody as choosing themselves or anybody as doing what they need to do for them as a personal blow to me, right? So I didn't have a lot of emotional maturity around what is true emotional and abuse and neglect and what is just me feeling wounds that are coming up for me, right? So I went through this entire scenario also, and I needed to truly be abused by somebody in order to understand the difference, right? And so now I know when I'm in a relationship with you, I know that most of the time, 100%, I'd say 99.9% of the time, you're not doing anything emotionally abusive or neglectful to me, right? Like, and if anything happens or comes up, I know it's unconscious. You're not intentionally trying to hurt me. Where this other person, there was a lot of intent behind what they were doing to me and how they were manipulating me, right? And so I really needed to experience on a very real level the difference of that to know in the future, okay, I can be certain that this is just my own shadow, my own stuff coming forward into play. And then that way I can look back on myself rather than putting it out towards you now. So,
thank you.
Pleasure. Pleasure. You can thank my karmic for that. That leads us to the next question, which is, how did you personally deal with the karmic partners, and how did we kind of work through that? So we talked a little bit about this in part 1 about jealousy. So if you didn't watch part 1, go back and watch part 1. But personally, on a personal level,
personally on a personal level, personally, right?
How did you deal with my karmic situation?
At times poorly. Obviously never towards you.
Towards me, yeah.
It was always more internally towards myself. For me, during a lot of that stage, especially once we came into union, I think more than anything else, obviously there were times where you guys are still in contact. Obviously you guys had storage together, and there were still parts you had to kind of work through, because when you went home he was still doing his trip and all the rest, so there was a lot of things that had to come around. There were parts of that for me that were very, very difficult because of my previous relationships and experiences. I kind of felt that, if this person stays around for too long, that there's a chance that maybe, they could steal you back, or maybe you would see something in them now because you've been with me that makes you want to go back there. Or, there was always that thing inside of me like, oh, well, if you stay in contact with this person, that maybe it's going to actually draw you back to them and away from me, which obviously is a very scary thought to have, because you're like, I don't want to lose you, but I also don't want to, trap you into something that you don't want to be a part of as well. So it made it quite challenging at times, because for a good while I didn't like him because of that simple fact, because there was a lot of constant communication, and then you go sit and have like a 2-hour phone call with him because he was going through troubling times and he needed someone to talk to, and I'd be like, I understand his side, but at the same time, like, bugger off. But at the same time, I knew where he was coming from, and because obviously I'd been through bad relationships as well, and when you've got someone you've got to know so well and can talk to openly in your own respect, I can understand why he wanted to talk to you, because as well, I mean, you are the kind of person that when you talk to you, it's like, oh, thank you, light bulb moments everywhere. But I'd be lying if I said that didn't drive me absolutely bonkers and up the wall and make me like very jealous and very annoyed and sometimes even angry towards it.
So can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When I was saying like, oh, I might have a call with him, or he wants to talk to me about this, why didn't you say no?
It's a good question. I think that there's two parts to that. I think one part of it was I was scared that if I said no, that you're going to think that maybe potentially that I was trying to control you in a lot of senses and trying to like stop you from doing something like that, because I didn't want to lose you there. So I didn't say anything because I don't want to seem like, like I was trying to be like, no, you're mine now and he can't have you. So there was definitely a big struggle with that. I think that was a massive part of it. And I think as well, I didn't want to, it's a difficult one because I didn't want to feel like I was trying to control you in any space. I wanted you to have, your freedom and still be able to be the person you are, because that's also the person that I fell in love with, because you are this very kind, caring, nurturing person who wants to help everybody. Did it make me feel happy at times? Definitely not. But I didn't want to, overstep what I thought was my boundary, because as well, at that point, our relationship was really actually only just starting. I mean, you just got in here. It was in the first like month or so that most of that stuff was happening. Eventually, I did say to you that I would prefer it if you didn't have so much communication. I said if something every now and again, you know, that is what it is. But I didn't want it to be like, you know, every like 3 or 4 days like having a 2-hour conversation, because then I felt like I was kind of just, for lack of better terms, a side piece. You know, just like something on the side until that all rectified itself. So that for me was a difficult part, and I didn't want to say anything, like I said, because I didn't want to say like, no, you can't do this, you must be with me, and that's it, and telling him to go screw himself, because for one, that doesn't align well with me, and two, it didn't feel like that was something that I should be putting onto your shoulders, because that as well was something that's very much personal to myself.
And you had to have a lot of trust then, like,
yeah.
Trust that, one, she's not doing sneaky shit behind your back.
Yeah.
Trust that, you know,
which I'd experienced previously.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's very triggering for you. Trust that everything is going to play out the way that it should. So you had to have a lot of trust that even if that did happen, that it was going to be for the highest good, right? Like, or trust that, you know, that you were still in the right place at the right time. So there was a lot of faith that you had to have in those first few months of us being together.
Yeah, I really had to just put everything into the fact that if I allow things to be the way that they are, obviously within certain reason, obviously it got to a point where eventually Ursa spoke up about it, that things would work out the way they're meant to be. Because like I've always said, no matter whether I chose to tell you or not in those moments, whatever the outcome was going to be, that outcome was always kind of set. We were never going to change where we were going to go end up. Obviously, yes, if I'd said something, it would have been maybe a different situation where we are now, but that would have been the situation that it was always going to be, because I would have always said something.
It would have played out at some point,
and eventually we did talk about it when I said, like, I don't actually feel that comfortable with it, and actually it does bug me, and we had a long conversation about that as well. And
and how did you feel after having that conversation?
I felt a little bit lighter, because I felt like, you know, I had gotten my my piece out. I had said what I had felt,
and it didn't turn into a fight, from what I can remember.
No, it didn't. It just became a good conversation where we got a little bit more in depth into certain things. From what I remember as well. I mean, that was also like over 2 years ago now. I feel as well with regards to like with your karmic partner, one part that I think really helped me is that I'm friends with almost all of my exes, which for a lot of people is really fucking weird. But the way I've always seen it was, just because we didn't work out in that scenario as being in a relationship with each other doesn't mean that that part of that person that I liked disappears, because there was still a reason for why we connected. Fortunately for my side, for most relationships, they've never really ended terribly. There's obviously my one or two of them have had bad outcomes from them, but it's never been something that I haven't been able to come back from. And I think because of that, it really benefited me to be able to see through your situation as well, and where you were and why as well. Maybe I held back telling you that I wasn't actually happy about certain things at those times. And I think that was a huge part that helped me massively, because I think without that, things would have been very different. And yeah, I mean, I feel that if you've been together with somebody, obviously not every single circumstance, and I think I'm probably very lucky, and it might even have to do maybe with the kind of type of person I am, but yeah, if I've been with somebody, there's been a reason behind it. It hasn't just been, you know, for some stupid willy-nilly reason that has no rhyme or reason. There's always been something behind it that, like, this is actually why I was with that person, and I still like that about the person. The fact that it didn't work out between us as an item doesn't mean that, oh, well, now suddenly that part of them I don't like anymore, and that's it, bugger off, cheers, bye, and we're done with each other. Because even though I might need time to kind of come back to myself and so with that person, every single one of my exes, if I've seen them, we've been able to have great chats, because there's still a connection. It's not that connection that we're maybe looking for, but there's still a connection between the two of us. Because I mean, like I said, I mean, if you date somebody, there's generally because there's something about the person you're gonna like. Obviously sometimes it's just a physical attraction, which then at that point kind of fades away a little bit. But if you're looking for more of a deeper connection with most partners, which I feel I did with most of my relationships, then there's a much different connection that you can kind of hold on to as well.
That's very true. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for leaving questions. It really truly helps us be able to dive in deeper to our own scenarios, and then, you know, in turn be able to help you guys deeper when you have a question or when you have a topic that you would like us to speak on. So definitely put those in the comments below. Like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the little notification button so you know that we are notifying you every time we come out with a new video. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.